Hey guys, it's almost Valentine's Day, which I guess by the time you watch this, Valentine's Day has already happened. But anyway, my name is Sarah. If you don't know me, I'm a second year medical student, and today I'm going to be reflecting on my first year of medical school. So back when I was finishing college and about to start med school, I really wanted to make a YouTube channel, but that seemed kind of ambitious and I didn't really know where to start. So instead I decided to make a blog on WordPress. I'm going to put a link to my blog down in the description in case you'd like to check it out. I didn't write too often during med school, but I did write about the first few weeks, and so that's what I'd like to talk about today. I started medical school right out of college, so I never had an opportunity to have a full-time job for a significant period of time. So I know a lot of people who take gap years kind of have a little more difficult of a transition when starting med school because you're so used to working and you're not really used to studying anymore, but I didn't really have that problem. But I do remember my first day of med school. We had like 5 classes, so it was kind of a lot, and it definitely felt like a long day, and it was so much material. But I just remember thinking, like, it's the first day of med school. Of course it's going to be a lot of information, it's going to be busy, but it's just because it's the first day, and after this it's going to get better and calmer, and it'll be fine. And then it didn't get calmer. It actually got worse. Before I started med school, a lot of people told me that it felt like finals week in college all the time, and that's pretty accurate looking back. But with that being said, let's go ahead and look at this blog. So here are my posts. I haven't posted since like July, but yeah, and here we are at the first week of med school. So there's a few more posts down in here talking about working in the ER and kind of talking about myself a little bit and my path to med school. But I'm going to start by reading first week of med school. So here's my post about my first week of med school. When I was a pre-med student, I was always dying to know what to expect in med school classes. The schedule, the course load, all of that stuff. So now that I've finished my first week of classes, I thought I'd answer those questions for you guys. First of all, the schedule's not like college. There's no microbiology at 9:20 every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. In med school, every day is different. So today I had a small group discussion at 9, anatomy lecture at 1, Wednesday there's lectures 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Some days I have class at 8 a.m. Some days everything's online and I don't have to leave the house. Obviously this was before COVID when we actually had classes in person. So other than my anatomy lab every Tuesday afternoon, there's no set schedule. Also, since most lectures are recorded and posted online, you could really just watch them whenever you want instead of actually going, which this is still true. Of course, everything's online now because of COVID, but even before COVID, all of our lectures were recorded and posted online, so you didn't actually have to go. You could just watch them whenever you wanted, which was really nice. But yeah, that's true. There's no set daily schedule like there was in college. There were some blocks where we would have lectures on Mondays and Thursdays and small groups on Wednesdays and Fridays or whatever, and so it was a little more of a regular schedule, but otherwise med school is just every single day is completely different. Second, the classes are not as difficult as you would think. The lessons are honestly much simpler than my undergrad classes, and I've already learned most of it in more detail in college. The only difference is the volume of information. Concepts that were taught in 1 week of undergrad biochem are covered here in 1 hour. That means you have to work hard to stay on top of all the material because you only have 1 day to study that material before you're taught another 3 weeks worth of undergrad material the next day. Having been through most of my second year of med school now, I don't think I would agree that the lessons are simpler than undergrad. When I was in biochem, yeah, it was just such a large volume of information that we couldn't really get into the depth that we did in undergrad. But now that we're really into the systems and everything, obviously we're learning so much more detail than we were expected to know in undergrad. And I think that reality really hit in my second semester of med school once we started our general pathology and microbiology block. That was kind of a shock, the amount of detail we needed to know. So yeah, it definitely got worse. But it is accurate that there's such a huge difference between undergrad and med school in the volume of information, and that what we learn in one lecture is stuff that we would spend several weeks learning in undergrad. That being said, there's more free time than I expected. Although this is just my second week, so I'm sure it will get worse. I really thought I would be spending all of my time studying. Yes, completely learning all of that day's material is important and takes a lot of time, but with no papers to write or assignments to do, all you have to do outside of class is study. So it's definitely doable to fit in time to socialize or watch Netflix like me. I can obviously tell that this was written by a first-year med student because that is not the case anymore. It definitely got worse, and I do sometimes spend all of my time studying in some blocks. Neurology, it sucked. I spent so much of my time studying, and on average I will spend 12 to 14 hours a day studying. But there are blocks, like right now I'm in psychiatry, and it's a little more simpler. It's a little simpler, so I definitely have a little more free time, but free time is very hard to come by these days. I will agree though, compared to undergrad, it is nice that we don't have like assignments and papers and things like that to do. It's really just studying. And while studying in med school looks a lot different than studying in undergrad, because now studying is more of an active process, like doing practice questions and flashcards, versus undergrad where studying was just looking over my notes. So it does take more energy, but it's still not the assignments and homework I was doing in college, so that's nice. So far, med school is definitely not as difficult as I expected, and there's enough freedom with my schedule to have a life outside of classes. I'm also very impressed with the collaboration among my classmates who are already sharing Anki decks and Google Docs. This past week, I've survived my first anatomy lab and white coat ceremony. Now I'm just studying every day until my first block exams in September. I have a feeling I'll have a much different opinion of the difficulty of med school then. Yes. In the meantime, if you have anything you want to know about med school, let me know in the comments or send me a message. So, yeah, that was my impression after my first week of medical school. So yeah, the very beginning wasn't as hard as I expected. People were saying med school is the most difficult thing, and right off the bat, it really wasn't that bad. They did kind of ease us into it. I do remember about the third week, it definitely was a huge step up and got a lot harder, but the first couple of weeks they kind of eased us in a little bit. It was still a lot of information, but it wasn't as bad as I expected. And I will say my class is great. My classmates are wonderful. I feel like compared to what I've heard about other schools, my school has such great collaboration among classmates. We still share resources and practice questions in Anki decks, and I really do like my class. So I'm also going to read my post about my third week of med school. So here we go. So I am 3 weeks into med school. In those 3 weeks, I've been in many new situations and done a lot of things, and I've definitely learned a lot. In this short little update, I'm just thinking out loud about what all has happened in the past few weeks. First, the last post I made is completely irrelevant now. That first week of med school was nothing compared to now as we are nearing our first exams. I expected to be immediately thrown into the thick of med school from the first day, but it's now evident that that didn't happen. While it was still more difficult than undergrad from the beginning, my school definitely eased us in over the first 2 weeks. Then the first day of week 3 hit and floored all of us. If I were to summarize this past week, it would be like finals week in undergrad. Only you're taking the equivalent of 30 credit hours. So yeah, like I said, they kind of gave us a gentle ramp up that first couple of weeks, and then the third week hit and it sucked. I remember texting my M2 mentor, like panicking, because I had no idea how I was going to do it. And so if you are a first year med student and you're freaking out about not knowing what you're doing, it gets a lot easier. You get used to it. And I'm definitely kind of in a comfortable place now where even though the material is really difficult and I spend way too much time studying, like I feel comfortable in my studying capability and how much I've gotten used to the information and how to answer questions on the exams. So yeah, it's definitely gotten not easier, but better. Basically, med school is hard. Like, people tell you it's hard, and you know there's a lot of information to learn, but no one tells you how it's going to make you feel. You know you can't learn everything there is to know about medicine, but it still feels uncomfortable to intentionally skip over something so you can spend the time learning something else. You always feel like there's more studying to do, but studying more will only lead to burnout, and you still won't know everything. But when you immediately recognize someone's symptoms and know what nerves are affected, you realize just how much you've actually learned. And it's worth it to be able to use your knowledge to help. So yeah, I pretty much agree with everything in that last paragraph. It is uncomfortable to skip over things, but I know that if I did spend more time studying, I would just get burnout, and that's no good. But there are times when I'll see a patient somewhere or be watching a medical TV show and I recognize the symptoms and I understand what's going on, and that's when I realize I know more than I think. And I think there's always going to be some amount of imposter syndrome at play, saying that I need to know more to be a good doctor, and it's just not true. I mean, yes, obviously I need to learn more than I know now to be a doctor, but you just kind of have to trust the process and understand that you are capable of learning the things in the amount of time, even though it feels like an impossible amount of information to learn. So that was my first few weeks of med school. I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on starting med school and what that transition was like, and how it felt in the beginning being a medical student and learning so much information. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos every Monday. So thank you for watching.